Just trying to make sure she's okay, but like she kept laying it on. Like I could tell she was lying, and I feel like she knows. I know she's lying. You know what I mean? She said that you convinced her to quit her job 2 days ago.
We're live. Welcome, everybody. Don't be fooled. City leadership picks and chooses what's cleaned up, what's left out, how to make things look.
Alright, give me that umbrella. I'm good.
Okay.
Unless you want it.
Well, it helps. I've kind of streamlined my setup. What's that?
Do you want it for your whole? Do you? Is it better for me to hold it or you?
My backpack isn't exactly waterproof, but we'll be fine.
Do you prefer to hold it yourself? Does that make you more dry?
I'm okay for now. Okay. I appreciate the help. I'm gonna take advantage for the moment.
Just whatever is more dry.
Now you get to see what I do is like all my whole procedures. The light isn't showing up. Okay, where's my live video? Now
hello,
I'm
I'm Josh. On behalf of the residents of Hazelnut Grove, the Oregon Poor People's Campaign, and our overlooked neighbors, welcome. We're glad you're here, and Glad you've been here for the past month helping us build the movement to save Hazelnut Grove. We are here today to present 5,500 signatures to Ted Wheeler and Dan Ryan, who's involved with the Housing Bureau and the Joint Office of Homeless Services, and to ask the city to honor its explicit commitment to innovative housing solutions. 5,500 signatures, 5,500 community members who believe in the Villoge movement and in the vision of stable community and housing at Hazelnut Grove. What does it mean to save Hazelnut Grove? Well, number one, it means not enacting the dangerous and potentially deadly action of forcing Villoge residents back onto the streets and sidewalks and into the forest in the middle of winter during a public health crisis. Our petition asks the city to leave the Villoge in place while an agreeable solution that is appropriate for every single resident is found. Number two, for more than 5 years, Hazelnut Grove has been an innovator in developing permanent and transitional housing, environmentally sustainable practices, and self-managed community. We're asking the city to partner with the Villoge to lead the next innovations and continue to bring solutions to the table. The Villoge is not just a location on the map. The Villoge is the creativity of the community and its commitment to self-management. We are asking the city to accompany us in preserving the spirit of the Villoge and continue to honor it as one solution to our current crisis. We're asking the city to support self-managed villages existing alongside social service managed villages. This afternoon, we're going to hear from several Hazelnut Grove residents, allied organizations, neighbors, and members of our community who submitted comments in the petition. If Christine is here, I'd like to introduce you to Christine. Christine and her husband Mike have been living at Hazelnut Grove for close to 1 year. Her story helps us understand the need for solutions like Hazelnut Grove. For many people in our community, apartments are not the end goal. They are often unsustainable financially and result in individuals being disconnected from their communities. At Hazelnut Grove, what is considered acceptable housing is determined by the individual making a life and home there. For Christine and her family, living off the grid in small homes has been more stable and grounding than apartment living. Christine.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here. My husband and I have stayed at Hazelnut Grove for almost a year. We were priced out of affordable housing back in 2015. We worked hard to find sustainable housing and I had a full-time job. We stayed in temporary shelters with our senior house. After we moved to Hazelnut Grove, our dog was able to enjoy the last summer of her life at Hazelnut Grove, safe and comfortable. My family was able to get past the never-ending anxiety from being unhoused. We could finally rest and be free to have our lives. We applied for apartments. We did Section 8 rent while home forward. We did everything we were supposed to do with a good rental history and no damage or evictions. We still ended up in tents and shelters. I don't want to go back to an apartment because they haven't been a sustainable housing option for us. Over the last 6 years, I have seen many friends get housing. Awesome, right? Really? Several of them end up back on the street while working and paying bills as the housing voucher expires or the rent increases. This is why I feel that apartments are not sustainable housing for a large percentage of our economically challenged population. Our neighbors and a friend rescued and fostered a pair of dogs, and we were blessed with this amazing rambunctious puppy as a result. We have seen good things happen in the village for our neighbors. like getting a good job or getting sober. Hazelnut Grove should be allowed to function as they have been because it works, and we need more villages like it. Thank you. Thank you. Can I introduce the next one?
We're going to have a land acknowledgement from Ethan.
Sheikh Pakwe, Sheikh Matash Inwa, Inknash Winiksha, Maskiaya, Kushia Putuki, Ethan Livermore, Wash Nash Yakamakanik. Good afternoon, good to see you. My name is Little Dipper, and in English, my name is Ethan Livermore. I'm from the Yakama Nation. I'm an organizer with the Oregon Poor People's Campaign and supporter of Hazelnut Grove. As we gather here today to support our neighbors' fight against eviction and displacement, it is necessary to acknowledge and remember the indigenous communities that were evicted and displaced by white supremacy and settler colonialism. This area that we call Portland was home to joyous communities of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, and others that were victims of genocide. We also need to acknowledge the work that still needs to be done today. Work to build relationship with indigenous communities across this state that we call Oregon. Work to listen to indigenous voices, and work of fighting violence and white supremacy in all of its forms. Let us remember that this land is not ours, and let us remember the original stewards of this land. We ask for their power and presence to enrich us in this space as we move forward together. Thank you.
Has Scott made it here yet? No? Oh, Scott moved into the village just before the state enacted shelter-in-place orders. And because Hazelnut Grove exists, Scott and his wife Barbie had a home to shelter in. For more than 11 months, residents of Hazelnut Grove have sheltered in place without contracting COVID. Which is more than can be said for the shelters, and that's an important point, and I'll hand it over to Scott.
Thank you. I just want to start out by saying that I myself am here today, and I suppose a lot of us are, in a complete spirit of peace. We're doing it by the book, and I just want that to be acknowledged, that we're all out here going through the due process and the things afforded to us to come to a resolution in these matters civilly, that when we knock on the door, it's open, instead of being closed like it has so often. With that said, I give my testimony. Our lives mean that little, Mayor Ted Wheeler? The bubonic plague of 2021. On the wire, the state of Oregon regarding the distribution of vaccinations. A large number of Oregonians are still weeks away from being vaccinated. We assume that at least 10 people will remain safely sheltering in place at Hazelnut Grove after the move of some to St. John's Village. Even then, we still have to wait several weeks or more to be vaccinated. Despite the delay in vaccinations to Oregon residents, or the fact that over 100,000 people have died since December 2020 in the United States, the city of Portland did, with foreknowledge and awareness of the crisis and the increased risk of the spread of a new COVID strain, did use their authority to initiate an eviction on Hazelnut Grove community. Mayor Ted Wheeler appointed City Commissioner Dan Ryan to oversee the Joint Office of Homeless Services to, quote-unquote, remediate the Grove's village residents, to abruptly take possession. Why, thank you, young man. Hand a round of applause for this guy, man. Got to start young, right? All right, I'm going to back up just a couple of sentences. Mayor Ted Wheeler appointed City Commissioner Dan Ryan to oversee the Joint Office of Homeless Services to remediate, and I want everybody to catch that word, remediate, the Grove Village residents, to abruptly take possession of the village and to completely, I want you to catch word of this, demolish, not relocate, not take down with forethought of the last 6 years of life there. No, demolish. Hate that word in this context. Demolish our structures. It should be noted that the residents who belong to the Overlook Neighborhood Association have stood against Hazelnut Grove nearly since the beginning. We saw the first use of the word remediate in a letter drafted by the Overlook Neighborhood Association for Mayor Wheeler, Dan Ryan, and the Joint Office of Homeless Services to demolish, remediate drug addicts, violent, mentally ill, and any other slanderous descriptions of a community of over 15 people just trying to survive. Not only COVID, but the loss of our loved ones too. The violence against our capital, the fires, the quarantines. Yet the city of Portland continues using merciless measures to villainize Hazelnut Grove. The city has chosen to appease the voting constituency, also showing partiality towards local businesses and the media in exchange for favorable media coverage. In addition, the city's actions towards Hazelnut Grove reinforce the hateful sentiment towards the poor. Abusive and insensitive policies against the poor, once thought to be a Trump administration tactic, well, now the politicians at City Hall have picked up where Mr. Trump's brood left off. That is the incessant threats against the peace and stability of the poor and other defenseless classes of people. The sanctuary city? I question that. No, they liked what Trumpo did. They just couldn't stand him. Broken promises, lies, and half-truths, and the abuse of power over life and death. Our petition is being signed. We have written to our senators. The residents of Hazelnut Grove have contended without violence, without property damage, even doing work along the bike path to make it safer, cutting lines through the overgrowth to allow more light to come through on the path's darkest places. Just a few weeks back, we removed a downed tree which fell across the bike path. We worked from midnight till dawn with handsaws and pruning shears to clear the path. We finished by standing at the top of the bike path to warn riders. We did this for nearly 3 hours. So the city will essentially throw remaining Grove residents out into the streets during a worsening of the pandemic, claiming we all have a place, which we, and I adamantly say, do not have a place, Mr. Wheeler. We're fine right where we're at. These tactics worked in Europe in the late 1930s into the early 1940s. Greed-driven doctrines of city politics, the appeasement of convenience for the good old boys, continuous, slanderous, villainizing the problems and ignoring the cheap solutions in lieu of making cash off the suffering of their fellow man, swept under the proverbial carpet. And I finish with this. Homelessness lives are not currency. They're not like your political failures, like you. We were all but a discharge of fluid. You might say we were all just a 1 in 200 million shot. In that respect, life matters, Mr. Wheeler. Peace, and think critically on these things. My name is Scott Weber. Thank you for your time.
I'd like to introduce Benjamin with Stop the Sweeps campaign to talk about the impact of displacement policies across the city.
Portland, what's up? As y'all know, homelessness is no accident. This is an intentional, designed mechanism brought about by the business community and urban planners of the last 40, 50 years. People that are on the streets, it is not their fault. Why is it criminalized? Why is it so overly represented in the prisons and jails? Why are the police targeting houseless people? 57% of all the arrests are unhoused. This is no accident. These cycles of poverty were intentionally created and kept people in, and then they created nonprofit industrial complexes, service-related providers around it, and make a lot of money. Now, under this pandemic, which, by the way, the first case in Multnomah County, the first case was in this building here. This building, the tallest building in the city, had the first case of COVID. It's not a virus of the poor. Those who are unsheltered, those who are outside and displaced, they're protected. And yet we have police going around and shoving people into shelters. And now that sweeps are going, they're going and going. The COVID cases are going up in these shelters. So what is the logic here? What is the purpose? Hazelnut Grove is needed. It's needed in this community. Just like Dignity Village is needed in this community. Just like Right to Dream 2 is needed in this community. They have plenty of funding, all the resources of the land. FEMA has guaranteed 100% reciprocity for the creation of new villages like C3PO. So what is the problem with creating another Hazelnut Grove in St. John's and keeping the one there? There is no problem. In fact, when you look at the 3 villages that were created, C3PO, why has that not been scaled? Nobody in the city has said it's failed. It is a success. So why has it not been scaled across the city? Why are there not 15 new ones? I walked down the street and I saw a polka dot campaign. Polka dots all along the sidewalk. Every single place where there's a polka dot, there could be a tent with no issues. That entire plaza over there could be packed full of people with no issues, properly spaced. The land is there. The resources are there. The Portland Development Commission owns the most vacant land in the city, and it sits vacant and has for years, so they can collect tax increment financing off of it. So what isn't there? What's missing from the motivation of these politicians to do it? What's missing? I think it is. I think it's money. I think there's no money. There's no investment opportunities to be made off outdoor encampments that are autonomously run, which is exactly why within the last 4 years, when the city made agreements to open new tiny house villages, they made one, the Kittens Women's Village, just one. And then they moved 2 others, and they called it success. And what they did with the Kittens Women's Village is they took away the autonomous nature of it. They made sure that they did not govern themselves, because that is dangerous. That is dangerous. Democracy is dangerous. So I just want to say this, that we are not alone in this fight. That in every major city in this country, there are people organizing around their houseless communities. There are people trying to stop the sweeps on every level. And so I just want to encourage everybody here to continue this work. We can save Hazelnut Grove because it was created through direct action. It can be saved through direct action, and we can create 10 more if we want. Thank you.
Melissa Lang is here with Sisters of the Road. Sisters of the Road's a nonprofit cafe in Portland's Old Town Chinatown neighborhood, working to create systemic change that will end poverty and homelessness by providing nourishing meals in a safe, dignified space. Melissa, come talk to us about the importance of stability and the difference between self-managed and social service-managed communities.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I'm only one of many community members, of sisters, broader community, and thank you for everyone for putting on today. The city of Portland begins as a story of displacement. Only a couple of 100 yards from here, below the Morrison Bridge, a highly sophisticated system of harvesting nuts and the indigenous community who maintained it upon those shores were displaced. In the late 19th century, business elites and city officials used a natural disaster, the 1894 flood, to displace the thriving Chinese American community centered around 2nd and Alder, north of Burnside, an area historically and continually divested from, a dumping ground of sorts for folks who were, quote, undesirable by white men and women of Portland. In the 1950s and into the 1960s, the Romani community was targeted and displaced specifically under the auspice of housing regulations and so-called pedestrian safety, because white neighbors appealed to the mayor to address the quote, gypsy problem. In the early 1970s, the city utilized the federal urban renewal program, Modern Cities, to justify the displacement of thousands of African Americans from their multi-generational, thriving community in Northeast Portland, to make way for Emmanuel Hospital and I-5 freeway. This community was intentionally divested from for the purpose of the city to call it unsafe and therefore fair game to demolish and reuse for the white middle class business interests. Not long ago, local historians and neighborhood associations called to clean up Old Town Chinatown of the, quote, seedy businesses and over-sexualized explicit businesses. These businesses they spoke of are cultural and community centers of the LGBT community. To label them as vice establishments and therefore unsafe for Portland straight businesses is homophobic. Most recently, during the global pandemic, the city of Portland has pursued an exhaustive effort to remove folks surviving outside from Laurelhurst Park. Many of these residents moved to Sunnyside Park for their safety and protection. Then the city moved to move them away from Sunnyside, displacing some folks out of their community entirely and some back to Laurelhurst. Likewise, the city continually harasses and sweeps folks who are forced to survive outside in tents in the name of COVID safety, claiming that pedestrians need several feet on each side of them to safely use sidewalks away from the virus's spread. Meanwhile, they gladly hand out permit after permit after permit to restaurants and bars to take up the very same space on sidewalks. I guess walking past an outdoor restaurant full of laughing and imbibing bar patrons is more safe for my health than walking past a fellow Portlander doing their best to shelter in place inside of a tent. Kaya Sand from Street Roads was right when she wrote, "The city raises creative solutions that unhoused people build, replacing them with systems of control. This is not new. This kind of displacement is a well-grounded Portland tradition." Mayor Ted Wheeler and his supporters on this issue are simply continuing this long-standing Portland tradition of using so-called safety measures to displace yet again another thriving and vibrant community. They say the land above the camp is a safety hazard because of the threat of a landslide. So why is the Max line not immediately shut down to protect riders and to move the tracks? Why then not immediately halt the travel of heavy trucks on Interstate Road if the land is about to break? They say Hazelnut Grove is a fire hazard. Then build a fucking fire hydrant. Just as you would if the community was not just another group you wanted to erase. I myself live close to the foot of the West Hills, dotted by wealthy homes situated on land at risk of landslides. Where are their eviction notices? This act of displacement is morally unconscionable, but it's also really fucking sad. It breaks my heart that Mayor Wheeler and his supporters on this issue are clutching to their bureaucracy like a treasured set of pearls and missing the ingenuity, beauty, and safety of this community. It makes me sad they are unable to see the insurmountable love and authenticity of this community. You miss out, Ted Wheeler, on Enya and her pet human Christine, whose Peter Pan smile can break anyone's shitty day. You're missing out on the library supported by street books full of novels, crafts, and dreams. You're missing out on Scott, who might be quick to anger but can build friendships over his guitar and desire to see a more just world for his friends. And you miss out on Barbie, who joins the decades-long list of Portland women activists whose work is often characterized as tireless, untiring, and inexhaustible. But she's not inexhaustible. Barbie is fucking tired. They are all tired. Our houseless friends are all tired of your empty promises, of the bigotry they face from housed Portlanders every day on the street. Tired of their trash being judged while the rest of us have the privilege to be blind to the trash we compile. You said it yourself, Mr. Mayor, quote, "We must do better to connect people living on our streets with safe shelter and services," end quote. These residents of Hazelnut Grove have built their own solutions, their own shelter, their own quote-unquote services through mutual aid. They don't need you to connect them. They need you to get out of their way or support them in building their own solutions. If you feel the space is not safe, then invest in the community. It's your choice to break Portland's long history of displacement. This isn't about safety. This is about affirming the interests of white men and women to displace those who challenge their own ideals of progress. I can tell you this is a space of progress. It's a place where folks have taken back the tradition of self-reliance, mutual aid, and community building. On September 1st, on your Facebook page, you stated everyone deserves to feel safe in their community. This act to demolish their homes, their memories, their trusted community is taking away their safety. Please hear us. Please hear them. Please hear Hazelnut Grove and support the leadership within the houseless community, not your experts. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Peggy Zabrowski. Peggy makes her home in the Overlook neighborhood and has accompanied Hazelnut Grove as a supportive neighbor for a long time. Former board member, Hazelnut Grove.
Thank you. Howdy, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. I first heard about Hazelnut Grove the night the cops knocked me down and broke my nose demonstrating against the murder of Quantice Hayes. I don't see these issues as so separate. I went down to Hazelnut, made friends with people there, started inviting the elders who didn't have a good place to wash up to come to my house every week for a shower day, which turned into shower and coffee and lunch day, and became friends with them. And that's the point I want to make. Wherever I see villages that get to stick around, I see neighbors who are in houses showing up and making friends and offering what they can offer to support people. This is a human process. These aren't my clients, these are my friends. I don't want to see them have their homes taken away. And I really get the intersectionality. Don't Shoot PDX, the Black Lives Matter visible organization in town, has been bringing meals to Hazelnut Grove for the last several months, once or twice a week. All our issues, environmentalism, the military with its long list of military armaments coming home to us. When we say bring the military home, we don't mean bring them into the streets to fight us. The environmental destruction, economic inequality, and systemic racism, these are all intertwined. There's a higher percentage of indigenous and black folks who are houseless than in other populations. We know this. We know that these things are unjust and that they must be solved. We need to roll together into one huge movement that can stand together and rip this baby down.
All right, we have our beloved former Hazelnut Grove resident, Meg.
Hi, I'm very honored to be here today. I'm going to try and make this real short and sweet. I just want to, real quick, fast, give folks a quick rundown of where it all got started. And it got started right here. There was a number of folks that was out on the sidewalk sleeping every day, every night, waiting for the mayor and his crew to make a plan. What are we going to do? We sat there and were patient, and year after year, nothing was done. So, in the midst of things, I myself am a disabled person on a limited income. it was a few years into it. I went to get some help for the first time from a housing authority. That's when I was told literally from the housing authority people that I needed to be a homeless person for over 1 year before they would help me. And that brought me down here with the rest of my friends. And we kept waiting and waiting. And one day we said, how long have we been here? How much longer are we going to wait? 3.5 years was long and hard. And we started looking. And then the Sisters of the Road Cafe said, there's a little spot if we could maybe work something out. And then there we were. We didn't ask nothing from the city. We didn't expect any special treatment. We thought we'd be swept like anyone else. That didn't happen. And so we got started. And we've been growing ever since. The only crime we created was that we got up and we did something for ourselves. We didn't ask for no help. We just simply wanted a place to sit and not have to carry every bit on our back, day in, day out. Sleeping on the sidewalk, that is much harder than the Earth Mother is. So that's forgiving. And it wasn't easy. And I am proud and honored to be a part of Hazelnut Grove. I am now in an apartment of my own, but I still belong to Hazelnut. And I just the other thing I would like to put out is, since we got started, from the beginning we were called a hostile takeover. There was nothing hostile about what we did. The other thing is, since we've gotten started and we've shown the city this is doable, this is successful, suddenly there are villages, left and right. A federal village for the veterans. They've got a city village, the women's village. They've got C3PO. It works. Now, why is it they want us to suddenly up and disappear is my question I really would like to ask the mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay, Bob Brimmer. Bob's a Hazelnut Grove resident who's used his time there learning carpentry skills, working with Cascadia Clusters, which is a program for those who have experienced houselessness.
First of all, thank you guys for spending your Monday afternoon in the pouring rain with us. It means a lot. So I am one of the few residents at the Grove that will be moving to St. John's. I have chosen to take this path because I enjoy stability in my life, and not knowing what will happen with the Grove it just kind of undermines anything that I can do for myself to advance my life. I know without a stable place to live, I can't maintain the job that I currently have with Cascadia Clusters, because then I have no way to secure my dogs, and that's kind of an issue for me. But Hazelnut itself has granted me such stability that I'm able to work 40 hours a week and begin to save to get my own property, and then be able to extend olive branches out to other folks to continue on improving other people's lives. It's given the people that have lived there over the last 5 years the ability to better resolve the conflicts that occurred. From the outside eye, any of the arguments may look violent, but from what I've seen of the growth of the people there, it has exponentially helped their ability to deal with conflict without resorting to actual physical violence. There might be a lot of shouting, but whose house doesn't shout? Furthermore, to just get rid of a shelter that has been functioning, albeit a little rough around the edges for the past 5 years, it doesn't make sense. How many housing units are we short? Like 20 or 200,000? I'm not sure what the actual number is. But to remove any without guaranteeing that you're going to double that number it makes no sense. I don't know. It's it would be interesting to see them keep them being the city keep their full promise to the Grove and provide a site to where we can maintain our autonomy with some service provision from an outside group if we even decide that we really need it. We haven't typically had it at the Grove, and we've done fairly well. I think we've transitioned, what is it, like 40 people, give or take, out of the Grove space into better housing situations. So I mean, it works. Why get rid of it?
Is Erin Goodling here? Erin, yes, Erin's a researcher at the University of Oregon, where she studies the topic of houseless displacement in the name of environmental hazards, such as fire, landslides, and soil pollution. Some of the reasons that have been given for wanting to demolish Hazelnut Grove. Street Roots said about Hazelnut Grove, there's a clear pattern based on the history of Dignity Village and Right to Dream 2. When housed neighbors are angry, environmental concerns prove a tool for evicting unhoused people from the land. Erin's going to speak to us about the kinds of environmental hazards people living outside and in villages face, and the relationship between exposure to hazards and sweeps and criminalization.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for showing up today, and to Hazelnut Grove for inviting me to speak. It's a total honor. I'm Erin. I use she, her pronouns. This is Kai. And over the last couple of years, I've interviewed over 50 people in houseless communities across the U.S. about their experiences with environmental hazards. And I'm gonna first read a quote from the City of Portland's Office of Management and Finance website, which I think someone quoted earlier today, Scott maybe. It says, environmental, fire, and traffic risks make Hazelnut Grove a dangerous place to live. The city plans to begin decommissioning Hazelnut Grove within the next month. The city will ensure nobody remains at Hazelnut Grove to protect health and safety. So, of nearly all the folks that I interviewed, people talk about soil pollution, noise pollution, fire, flooding, etc. as really significant concerns for their own health and safety. People are worried for themselves, right? And we hear this from folks all over the city of Portland too. But it's not like people are deciding to locate in marginal spaces on their own accord. When cities sweep people out of downtown areas and residential spaces, they push people into the city's most marginal spaces, right? Into places at the bases of hillsides, into fire-prone areas, etc. And so, what's even more egregious though, and as we've heard over and over today, is that local governments then sweep people from these dangerous places in the name of health and safety. It's this cycle, right? This exposure to hazardous circumstances, criminalization, and eviction, over and over. And it affects I don't want to overgeneralize, but many people who are houseless, and disproportionately folks, BIPOC people, LGBTQ folks, elders, and immigrants who experience cumulative and intersectional harms. This cycle needs to stop, as we've heard today. The answer is not to displace people, including those living in fully functioning, stable places like Hazelnut Grove. The city says it's concerned about landslides, fire, and soil pollution. You heard from Scott all the things that the village has done and neighbors have done to help mitigate these concerns. Why not continue down that track, right? This is not a case of the city acting in good faith out of concern for the health and safety of residents at Hazelnut Grove. This is a case you gotta hang on tight, Claire. This is a case of the city pandering to house people who, enshrined in their private property rights, envision they ought to be allowed to force those in more precarious positions into disappearing. Homelessness became widespread when the federal government cut funding for affordable housing in the early 80s by nearly 80%. Prior to that, there hadn't been widespread houselessness since the Great Depression. Serious racialized poverty, yes, but not widespread homelessness.
Homelessness will not go away until comparable funding is reinstated. In the meantime, people need a place to exist, to eat, sleep, and live, to build community. It's long past due that city officials recognize housing as a human right and stop sweeping people and let villages like Hazelnut Grove live in peace. Thanks.
Dana Lewis is the founding director of Gather, Make, Shelter, an organization that works with people experiencing houselessness and poverty through collaborative skill-building projects in creative fields. Dana works with residents of Hazelnut Grove in the Gather, Make, Shelter Academy and is also involved with the C3PO villages the city began building to shelter people during the pandemic. Dana.
Thank you. Thank you all the speakers who said so many wonderful things, and I really appreciate everyone who's standing here today in support of this. I want to talk about compassion. We need more compassion. We need people to feel like you're human, I'm human, and we need to all meet each other at our base level of humanity to participate in solving the issues around houselessness and poverty. We need that now. When I started Gather, Make, Shelter, I thought it was going to be a one-year little program, and it turned into a program in which 2,000 people have participated and collaborated, housed and unhoused, in really amazing and creative ways over the last 3 years, and we continue to do that today. I've worked with 6 people from Hazelnut Grove so far, and several of those people have become part of our Academy project. Barbie and Christine are here today, and they were part of the original project in which they helped raise $10,000 with their efforts to help get people into housing. So people are industrious, creative, amazing humans all over the place, and people want opportunities to grow and to be calm enough in their housing situation so that they can grow and be creative and participate. I do, as it was mentioned, when COVID hit, talk about compassion, it brought us all to our collective knees. And COVID knows no boundaries. We're all susceptible to it. And one of my dear friends and collaborators, Peter Saltzman, who's a poet in town and lives on the street, he says very eloquently, you know, COVID really doesn't care. And we care more about each other than COVID does. And so anyway, C3PO was started with the city and emergency money to help people get into housing that was safe, to create these 3 villages that exist in different parts of Portland, 2 on Water Avenue and 1 over here on Broadway and 6th, to safely shelter the houseless community. The mayor came to visit us just before he was reelected, and he came and did a tour, and I was there, and he saw all the wonderful things that were happening when people actually could calm down and have their needs met. And as he was leaving, out of the side of his mouth, but everybody heard it, he said, "This is amazing. We need 50 of these." And I know, Ben, you asked for 6 more or 10 more, but we need 50 more. And we need him to stand accountable to that idea that he brought up. We didn't ask him for 50 more. In addition to that, it's a shame. We have self-governed village in Hazelnut Grove, and that's what people are talking about, wanting to foster more self-governed programs, more self-governed alternative shelters. And Dan Ryan just spoke right on my way over here. He talked all about that, really investing in the city and investing in that way. I want people to invest in Hazelnut Grove and what exists, in addition to building 49 more.
I'm going to share a few thoughts here. I'm Josh again. I've been a Hazelnut Grove resident for 3.5 years. The story of the Grove started more than 5 years ago. It's a long story with many chapters, but the basic outline is pretty straightforward. A group of people who didn't have housing got together on vacant land and constructed housing. They constructed housing with help from neighbors and friends, and it's a beautiful place to live. It's as safe as anywhere else. There would be no good reason at all to demolish it. It seems like really a question of, do we want to be constructive or do we want to be destructive? It's easy to see there are a lot of stereotypes at work out there, a lot of condescending attitudes, and sometimes there's an intense focus on things like slight variations in property values. And it's clear that there's a kind of bureaucratic juggernaut, various sorts of blind, habitual, institutional momentum, and all these factors can combine in very destructive ways sometimes. The Grove is not a project that was handed down from on high, from the centers of highly concentrated political or economic power. It's always been a peer-to-peer project, a volunteer project, a labor of love. There's never been any money in it for anyone. I think that's a really beautiful thing about it. It's also made it controversial. But, you know, many people sense that there's an opportunity for things on this planet to get a lot better. There's an opportunity for us as a society, as a species, to really turn a corner and create a world that works a lot better for everyone. And I think we can see at least the broad outlines of how to turn that corner, how to bring about that transformation. It might involve moving out of our comfort zones in some ways, but surely it's worth it. And at the same time, we're facing various kinds of immediate crises around the world: political crisis, environmental crisis, spiritual crisis, and certainly economic crisis, as you can easily see looking around at the streets of the city. So Hazelnut Grove is emblematic of how we can do our best to address all of these very important issues, from the immediate crises to large-scale transformations. And I hope everyone involved will have the compassion and the vision and the courage to recognize that. Barbie Weber has been a resident of Hazelnut Grove for almost 1 year. You can read more about her journey to Hazelnut Grove and the life that she's built there in last week's online Street Roots edition. Barbie is an organizer with the Poor People's Campaign and is the co-founder and coordinator at Ground Score Association, an association of environmental workers who create and fill low-barrier waste management jobs.
Okay, you guys, I'm gonna take my glasses off so I can't see you, right? My name is Barbie Weber. I go by she and they, them pronouns, and I organize with just about every organization that is represented here. I started at Sisters of the Road. Me and my husband had been living in a van. We were really isolated. And the day that I walked through Sisters of the Road was life-changing for me. I started my advocacy from the windowsill at Sisters of the Road, and quickly became involved in all different kinds of organizations: Right to Survive, Western Regional Advocacy Project, Poor People's Campaign. I became a Street Roots vendor. I invested my life into this because when I was on the street, all I wanted to do was show that everybody, that we have a voice. Stand up and take your voice. I did not land on the streets because I was a drug addict or an alcoholic. Okay? I had a brain injury that severely disabled me at the end of 2009 into 2010. I will tell you that you're looking at a woman that could barely walk and talk. I would not be here able to even speak a sentence if it wasn't for my husband and the care that he gave. Now, we went through massive struggles on the streets. We've been beat up. We've been swept 10 times a month. We've had a lot of stuff happen. Now, through all that, I continue to advocate for the homeless. I have spoke to Ted Wheeler. I have spoke in this building here. My number one goal when I started with Sisters of the Road is all I wanted to do was get in front of the mayor. And now I'm shaking hands with senators. I'm going to Washington, D.C., and I'm watching our presidential candidates. I'm going to San Francisco and talking about the displacement in not just Oregon, but all over the country. Okay? And then in 2019, I co-founded a low barrier jobs program through Trash for Peace. And in 1 year, even through the pandemic, our jobs program has doubled. Okay? The money, we started the People's Depot, which was started during the pandemic. We were a bottle redemption center. And so far, we've given about $85,000 back to the community. And I'm talking about the community that lives on the sidewalks. About 95% of the people that come to the People's Depot self-identify as homeless. Okay, all of the stores closed up. Nobody was taking any bottles and cans, and people were starving to death and not able to get their medication. Okay, they don't just use it for alcohol and drugs. They use it to care for themselves. Now, they have said a lot of really awful things about Hazelnut Grove, and I want to tell you something. So a year ago, I entered Hazelnut Grove because I had been hit in the face by one of my campmates. And so I got in there on an emergency situation. And I'm going to tell you, praise God, that was the best hit in the face I've ever taken. Because when I got there, I had these community members that fed me and cared for me. And not only that, none of us have gotten COVID. And you want to know why? It's because we've taken care of each other. Now, as successful as I am, and I'm going to tell you something, this is a really big deal to me. I am about to go off a disability. I'm signing the W-2 form. And you tell people that you want them to pick themselves up by the bootstraps? Why are you going to cut my legs off before I get a chance to thrive? The year that I've been in Hazelnut Grove, think about the 5 years that my neighbors have been there. How successful do you think they've been? Because I wouldn't be here without them. This is my family. Now, I've been offered, why don't you go check out this other village? I'm in support of all the villages. I am. But this is my community. This is what picked me up. This is what is going to get me off disability and on the road to normalcy the way you see it. Don't cut our legs off. We have invested in this community, and I will tell you that for 5 years, there have been no fires. The villagers clear the fire lines every year. They work with the fire department. We can't have open fires for several months of the year. And not only that, the city used to come and clear the bike path out there, but they stopped doing it. So guess what? My husband and another villager, they cleared it from interstate all the way down to our main gate, which is a long ways, all the brush. The city politely came to pick it up. So not only are we taking care of what we agreed to, but we're also doing their work when it comes to fire risk. Okay? We are a beautiful community. And because we cost $1,500 a month, folks. That's it. You know, you can see how much the C3PO camps cost. You can see into the shelter continuum, and some of you may be aware of what that is. They're changing city land codes to put more outdoor shelters. Okay? The reason they want to disband or just take away Hazelnut Grove is because they don't have control. I was actually told through some of my inner workings of the mayor's office that they are not even going to negotiate with us. We have to have some agency represent us. What the heck? When you go to eviction court, who's the person standing there? Are you telling me that I'm so less of a human being that I can't even negotiate my own eviction? I'm an employed woman. You know what? The only reason that I ever struggled with alcoholism on the streets is because I was fighting so fucking hard, I would put myself into a hole. And that's where I survived. On February 9th, I got 6 months sober from alcohol. And all of you people know No, I mean, there's lots of friends here. There's lots of people that are around me that love me. You know, hopefully they put Laura is Laura with Trash for Peace, and Taylor, who's a WEGO officer in the development corner of Ground Score. They believe in us. They believe in our ingenuity. Programs like Dana, Gather, Make Shelter, they believe in our ingenuity. Straight Roots believes in the ingenuity. Sisters believes in the ingenuity. I will tell you that I went from one coast to the other. And I will tell you, homeless people have more talent than their little piggies than a lot of people in these fucking buildings. Let us build something for ourselves. You say you want people to be self-sufficient, but you don't want to allow them to do it? What's wrong with that picture? And by the way, there is no landslide risk there. And we're having the soil tested. Okay? I am an environmentalist, and those are things that I'm concerned with. But I will not let them I will not let them lie to us. We will find out the truth. Okay? From the beginning, we've said, you have all these safety risks, fine. We're not going to argue with you about that. Either leave us here or put us someplace where we can continue to live as we have lived. I've had people call our houses shacks because that's the way the media has painted it. I got the most beautiful little house. My porch is completely covered with windows. It's gorgeous. I even have a wheelchair ramp from my best friend Mo. You know, handicap, it's all completely there. I call it Barbie's dream house, because it is. So don't take my community. Don't take my friend's community. We need this. Thank you. So I'm going to switch this over to Peggy, but we're going to start reading some of the comments, okay? But I want you to know that I can't remember the exact count, but it was way over 5,500, you guys. And I want to thank everybody. There's also a bunch of hand signatures, and collectively there's probably about 150 of those. So you guys came out and showed up for us. And I want to thank you. We're in the rain, and we're in the middle of an extreme risk of COVID. And here we stand in solidarity. I hope you're watching. So I'm going to hand this over to Peggy, and I'm going to show you this big box. And I'm going to tell you, this is amazing, you guys. People from all over the country stood up for us. And we continue to stand up for ourselves. And thank you for empowering that. Like Barbie says, people all over have stood up for Hazelnut Grove. This box represents more than 5,000 individual signatures. If we printed each petition out with its signature, we would have 40 reams of paper in front of you here. So we just put the comments and one copy of the petition. But I want to let you know all the organizations that have endorsed Save Hazelnut campaign. All Rise Media, Gather, Make Shelter, Ground Score Association, Hygiene for All, Jobs with Justice, Living Earth Portland, Pacific Northwest Family Circle, I'm getting there. Portland Neighbors Welcome, Portland DSA, Portland Tenants United, Rahab Sisters, Sisters of the Road, St. John's Safe Light Houseless Outreach, Stop the Sweeps, PDX, Street Books, Street Roots, Thriving Life Community, Trash for Peace, Sunrise PDX, Village Coalition, and the Western Regional Advocacy Project, and countless others who put in their efforts to this quickly wrought campaign. Thank you so much. We're going to invite people up. Barbie's going to hand you sheets if you want to read some of the comments out loud. And between the comments, I want to see if I can get y'all to do a yell that we like to do at Poor People's Campaign. It's quite simple. I say forward together, and you say not one step back. Let's give it a try. Forward together!
Not one step back.
forward, together. Now file on through and read the comments, or make a comment of your own briefly. Who wants the mic? Don't be shy. Barbie's not shy. I'll start with the comment reading. This is from Carla Parnell, Portland, Oregon. A friend who worked on this project passed away recently after losing everything in her life to the pandemic. Now is not the time to take away social support. Forward together!
Not one step back!
Hi, I'm Lola. I live at Hazelnut Grove, and half of 5 years we began it, and I'm still there, and I'm still fighting. A great opportunity to engage in community building. That's a response, that's a comment. A pandemic is not the time to evict people. As the residents of Overlook, I am asking you not to move the Hazelnut Grove residents until each person has a safe place to go. That's what I like. That's the kind of hearts I want.
Not one step back!
Hi. We have a quote from Nicholas Knight in Eugene, Oregon. A pox on anyone who evicts people during a global pandemic. A vote for humanity. These people deserve to live where they have built and thrive in their community. Don't take away their homes. I would also like to say that I've brought a box of food. It's hanging out underneath the pillars. Please help yourselves, anybody who's hungry, everybody. Lots of love.
Not one step back!
Act like you care so your words mean more. Do it out of respect for Nick and for what he stood for.
Forward together!
Not one step back.
Brian, did you want to say something?
Hello. Hi guys. Affordable housing is a human right. Oh, I'm Ryan. I'm from the Grove. I live there, and it's cool. Affordable housing is a human right. We need to take care of each other. Portland stands as a beacon for humanity. That is Ruth Saker of Madison, Wisconsin, number 7. Yes?
Hi, so my name is Loki Spirit Walker. I was outside for 12 years. I'm only 27. I did not personally live at Hazelnut Grove, but I had to find a spot about 2 miles into the woods so that I would not be swept and that I could be left alone. Having a spot and knowing that I would not have my stuff stolen or be demeaned and undermined by shelter staff that treated me like children and sometimes were downright abusive was the only way I was able to finally get off the street after all those years. Independent, self-managed villages are the solution. Why are you trying to replace the solution with shelters? Ted Wheeler lied to Hazelnut Grove, and some of you, maybe from St. John's like me, Do Good Multnomah, we advocated for that. Several people in Hazelnut Grove that were outside, I was at the time, I'm no longer, but several people like me and Bob, we went to those meetings. We advocated for it. We need more solutions, not less. We did not know that they would be used to displace our neighbors and our friends and family, such as Barbie and Scott. That was not what we advocated for at all. We're not against Do Good Multnomah or the St. John's Village, but why make people that are housed houseless? Back in the day, Communes and homesteading was a thing. Back when freedom still existed, you could build your own home. You didn't need a permit. Furthermore, Hazelnut Grove was on a place that previously had overgrown with thorns, needles, trash. They took it and they made it their own into a thriving community. The First Amendment says we can gather and protest wherever the fuck we want. It says literally, well, you can go up and read it, but it says basically you have a right to be on public land. That is what Hazelnut Grove is, on public land. It doesn't say anything about your fucking housing status. Thank you.
Not one step back. Okay, Peggy's going to close this down. I just really want to thank everybody for being here. It's really meant a lot. It's really meant a lot to the people at Hazelnut Grove. It touches our heart. And we hope to be here till the end of time, I think. All right, here's Peggy. Peggy's going to bring the show to a close. Again, it's wonderful to see people, about 100 people willing to get out on a rainy day for our houseless, previously houseless, housed Hazelnut neighbors and those still unhoused. This box was made by one of our supporters. We invited representatives of Dan Ryan and Ted Wheeler to be here today to receive these petitions, and
Where are they?
yeah, I'm not seeing them. I'm not seeing them. Maybe they can only touch the hands of people who are paid by agencies to speak to them. I don't know. We're going to find a way to get it to them. And we really appreciate everyone being here today. We need you to keep on the watch because this fight ain't over. And we'll be asking probably for more support from the people of this community. And you can follow on Twitter or the Oregon Poor People's Campaign Facebook page, or what's that other one? Instagram, yeah. That's where to go. Thank you very much. One more thing. The petition is now over 5,600 electronically.
Alrighty, folks, you are absolutely still welcome to march around not the Capitol, the City Hall. This fight is not over, and it's not over today. If you are able to stand with us and get the message across to City Hall that they should keep their hands off the Grove, please feel free to walk around the Capitol, or the Capitol. They're not that important, are they? The City Hall. If you are not able to or just don't want to, I know everyone's really wet, please feel free, if you have a sign, to put it underneath our Easy Up right here, and make sure to tell your friends, your dog, your grandma, whoever, your TriMet bus driver, tell them to save Hazelnut Grove. Again, feel free to stick around and get the message across the City Hall. If not, thank you very much. It was great to see everyone.
Before my neighbor left to go back to the village, because we're actually all here, so we had somebody back there was a few people with different organizations that wanted to provide some service or talk about what kind of thing or what kind of help they could do. If you stuck around to the end, please come see me and I can take your business card and get your collector information. Thank you again for coming, you guys.
Yeah, I tripped on that too. It's like, there's wheelchair parking right there. Where is the actual... Oh, it's all graded.
Oh, yes, please.
There's at least a way to get over here.
Hi everybody, really quick, my name is Philip. I just wanted to say thank you for the organizers providing accessibility today. It's so important that we can all protest together and that anybody has the opportunity to make those intersectional movements accessible. So please make sure that you do that as well, and thank you to the organizers here.
And thank you, Andrew, for providing SLA
or interpretation. Thank you very much.
Here, hold this thing. No. So, how you feeling about the night?
They're not going anywhere. They're marching around like this yard. That's okay.
Yeah. We'll check out ice for the next Tactic Kingdom march for more drums.
Before you take my heart,
Here we go.
stop in the name of love. Before you take my heart, step away.
I think that's the perfect moment to wrap. So, thanks for watching, and
Hey everyone,
at least
I'm born and raised occupied Multnomah. I just want to give a chant. Hazelnut Grove! Hazelnut Grove!
Hazelnut Grove!
Hazelnut Grove!
Hazelnut Grove!
Hazelnut Grove!
Hazelnut Grove!
Hazelnut Grove!
Hazelnut Grove!
Grove! Hazelnut Grove! Hazelnut Grove! Woo!
Okay, now we're done. Thank you for watching, everybody. See you again soon.